Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. Joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. It is Thursday. We've got a lot to get into today, and a lot of it is injury stuff that's not the best news. Not exactly how we want to spend our Thursday, but this is important stuff here that could impact the home stretch here of the NBA season. Keith, I don't know why this happened, but today it feels like it's just the dam burst and it's all injuries today.
Yeah, it really is. And what's unfortunate is like today should be like a happy day despite the injuries. I'm in an amazing mood because there's basketball on all day today and tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday because we've got college basketball conference tournaments going on. So I love this time of year. I'm getting to see some of these guys in some cases play for the first time. I've never seen them play a game that are draft prospects. So I've been working on behind the scenes, building out my little draft lists and all those things and making sure I can check out when these different guys are playing this week. So, but yeah, all these injuries stink and there's a lot of them. So we should probably just get started and hold our noses and get through it.
Oh, you know what? This is, I guess, peel back the curtain a little bit, but I wasn't thinking about what day of the week it is. Today's Thursday. Tomorrow is Front Office Friday.
Yeah, it is.
We need to pick a time.
Yeah, we do.
What time do we want to do Front Office Friday tomorrow? You want to do 1 Eastern time or something?
Yeah, that probably works.
Does that work? That's 10 a.m. Pacific time.
It works for me.
That works for you? Okay, yep. There it is. There it is, front runners. Tomorrow, Front Office Friday. We will be live 1 o'clock Eastern time. Come join the show. We'll be taking questions and comments. There we go. Decision making on the fly. Gotta love it.
You're perfect. Well done by us.
All right. Let's get into Kevin Durant. Let's just start there. Bizarre, right? Maybe a bad omen for the rest of the show. Kevin Durant, in his home debut for the Phoenix Suns, sprains his ankle before getting onto the floor in warmups. He sprains his ankle and now might miss the entire regular season for the Suns. The Suns fans have not gotten to see Kevin Durant yet, not in person. And now he might miss the entirety of the regular season. Now, hopefully for the Suns, it's just a matter of getting him back for the playoffs and they can still be an extremely dangerous team. But that's crazy. I can't think of many times when anything like this has happened.
Yeah, every once in a while someone will tweak something in warmups and they may miss a game. I think Miles Turner a couple weeks ago tweaked his back and missed a game. Didn't AD like hurt an ankle or something in warmups and he was questionable to play a game or something like that. But yeah, to have this kind of injury that could hold him out for a month basically, that's just awful. And it's two things I have thoughts on this. Is the first is, why does it feel way worse that it happened this way than if it was the first play of the game, he rolled his ankle? It's the same end result, right?
Sure.
But it just feels way worse that this was how do you get hurt in warmups? It reminds me of that quote in Any Given Sunday when they're down to the backup quarterback and they're like, he got hurt. And the team doctor's like, what do you do? Fall off the bench? It just makes me think of that. But then there is the other piece of this is the Suns. Now, I've said it over and over. Kevin Durant, the all-time greatest plug-and-play player we have in the game. But they were figuring it out, right? And we've got this month worth of games. We're gonna get him in there. We'll figure out who he works with, who he doesn't work with, who occupies the same spaces on the floor. How do we keep our spacing clean and all that stuff? And now all of a sudden we're into a position where, well, that's all out the window. And I guess we're doing that on the fly in the first round of the playoffs.
Right, which is not ideal. I think the Suns are still talented enough to survive the first round, and maybe if you build a rhythm there, and then by the second round, okay, you're off and running. But still, you were already going to be rushed to build chemistry with this team. Now it's going to be really tough. It's going to be really difficult for the Suns team to get out there and really have the kind of chemistry you need. And look, that gets magnified in the playoffs, where every little mistake that you make on the defensive, that's what I tend to think of more than anything else. It's defense. Like Kevin Durant, I don't care what the offensive set is. Give KD the ball, he can put it in the basket. But defensively, all 5 players have to be on a string. They all have to be connected. And you can watch things from the sideline. You can go through things with assistant coaches. You can do things on the technology you've got on iPads and all that kind of stuff and do all of that. that still doesn't mean that you're going to have that connectivity on the floor. And come playoff time, the quality of teams that you're playing are going to be high enough to where you're playing teams that will recognize anytime any defensive player is off, even half a step, and they will exploit it. And so that's going to be a concern for Phoenix.
Yeah, and he's a big part of their defense too, because they are basically playing him as the four. There were probably going to be times, I would guess, maybe down the stretch of halves and games where he would be the lone big on the floor at times. And I mean, that's kind of, it feels weird after years of Kevin Durant being like basically a wing to even think of him as a big. That's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of the way his career is starting to morph. But yeah, it's definitely tough. But like you said, I think they'll be fine in part because they have so much talent and because of who he is. You're just going to drop him in, but yeah, there's going to be a little bit of bumpiness there probably for a little bit, and bumpiness in the playoffs for a couple games. All of a sudden, you're in a series you didn't expect to be in, or you might even be losing a series or something like that. So we'll see, but hopefully this is. The MRI shows that it's not quite as severe, and he's back earlier than what they're thinking right now.
And Kevin Durant is one of the few NBA players who have actively protested against being considered a big in terms of like asking for himself to be listed as
Yeah,
shorter than he
yeah.
actually is. Most players want, hey, I'm 6'5", list me as 6'7", that type of thing. Kevin Durant's like, no, 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 put me at 6'11", even though he's very clearly 7 foot. Yeah. So him being a big, interesting little transition, but we'll see how this all turns out. All right.
I never understood that because in high school, one year our coach gets so frustrated with us asking on the programs that were handed out to have inches added to our heights that he was like, put down whatever you want. And that's what he put in. So we had kids like listing themselves at like 6'6" that were like 6'2" and stuff. I listed myself at 6 feet one year, and I'm not 6 feet tall. Not even then I wasn't. So yeah, that's just a funny aside.
Oh man, can you imagine if they let you do that at the NBA level? They let you pick whatever height you wanted to be.
Right?
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Oh my
It's
gosh.
yeah, man. I always think about that. Like now, like remember a couple of years ago when they're like, "We're gonna get accurate on these
Yeah.
heights," and I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
cool." Like I
It,
didn't like, yeah, fine. Like
it
I care
lasted
when they
about as
come
long
into
as
the
other
league.
rules.
Yeah, I care when they come into the league. After that, I kind of don't give it a lot of thought
Mhm.
anymore. And then you randomly hear about a guy who's been in the league like 3 years, and they're like, "Yeah, he's 6'11" now. He grew 4 inches since he
Yeah.
came into the league," and it's like, "Oh crap, I guess he did."
Like, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Um, we've got. I guess we might as well just jump. There's
It's
so
like the
much.
roulette wheel of
I know.
injuries.
I'm looking at this and I'm just thinking, my gosh, what injury do I want to go to next? Actually, you know what? Let's not even go to another injury. Let's go to the one non-injury story that we've got. Fred VanVleet. Oh boy, he went off on NBA officials. Yeah, he said a lot, and the response I've seen from fans has largely been, just applause. Right? They've
Yep.
been thrilled with the things that Fred VanVleet said that referees are ruining games, and that most referees are good, but there are a number of referees that are out there to make the game about themselves and are out to get him, and particularly he singled out one particular referee, and it was an interesting rant. A fine is certainly coming, but was this something that just needed to get said regardless of what the fine is here, or what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think so. I think for that Raptors team, they had a string of questionable calls go against them in the previous game against the Denver Nuggets,
Mhm.
including Scotty Barnes getting thrown out when Scotty Barnes and players on the Nuggets said he wasn't even talking to Scott Foster, and
Yeah.
Scott Foster threw him out of the game. Then they against the Clippers, they had again a bunch of tough calls. And as you said, Fred VanVleet. Now, my favorite part of it was this was almost like you remember when you were a kid and your parents were like they weren't they were like giving you like a dressing down or a talking to,
Mhm.
but they never raised their voice, and it felt so much worse.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was like just yell at me already and get it over with, and like they didn't. He was calm the whole way through. He was very poised. You could tell at first he was like, should I go here? And then he's like, you know what? Forget it. I'm doing it. I'm
I'm
going
gonna
in.
say it.
And then he called out Ben Taylor
Yep.
himself, specifically not Ben Taylor of thinking basketball and lots of great basketball history and analytical work,
The
but Ben Taylor,
referee.
the official. But yeah, called him out and said like, "Hey, this dude has a problem with me and the Raptors." And then someone from Sportsnet Canada, she looked up and saw, of his 6 technicals this year, 4 came in games Ben Taylor called, 3 of them called by Ben Taylor himself. So now it's officials are human, right? So I don't expect, just like we've all shared work environments with people we just don't get along with,
Sure.
right? And it's just not going to go well. It's we've all been there. But I would hope at the end of the day we all were able to be professional and move about the day and do our job. And in the NBA, it seems like we're having some problems with this. And this was Raptors related, Fred VanVleet related, but the officiating over the last like couple weeks, it's just been bad. Like I don't even know, and like I don't talk a lot about
Yeah.
officiating. I try to mostly avoid it, and just more often than not, I don't think it has the impact people think it has. But it's just been terrible in a lot of these games, and there's so many games. When you watch the amount of basketball you and I do, there's so many games where both teams are barking at the refs and
Yeah.
unhappy. And it's like, that's not always a good thing, right? In general, you want the referees to almost, you don't even know they're out there,
Yeah.
right? Or
Exactly.
when they make a call, you're like, all right, I can see it, but
Mhm.
good call. And you move on. And, with that, and then the whole, just this is, since we're on on the topic, I'm over the review process. Like, I kind of hate the whole thing. Like, just if they make a mistake, move on. Like, I
These
don't even like, it's just they're taking too long. It's these end of these games, like, are just like, I know they've
and
cleaned it up some, but yeah, I don't want to do it anymore.
and look, I mean, obviously I'm biased, and I mean, when I watch Lakers games, I'm extremely biased. There's no question there, and I try to recognize my own bias, but it happens. But there's even games where they've reviewed stuff and still got it wrong.
Yeah.
They've found ways to do that, which blows my mind. But you are, the review process. Anytime anybody gets whistled for a foul, they don't agree with it. Instantly, they're doing this. They're
You give
spinning
me
the
10
circle and
seconds into the game and they're like challenge.
review it, check it, and
Yeah.
but so look, officiating is not. It's not an easy job. I would be awful as an NBA. I am very confident that I would be terrible as a referee. I can't imagine how difficult it is to officiate these guys that are moving at light speed and are bigger, faster, stronger than 99.9% of the humans on this planet, and you have to make split-second judgment calls on what they're doing, particularly when you've got a number of players who are actively doing things to try to trick you, right? I
Yes.
mean, there's a bunch of players who do that on a night in night out basis. They are trying to make it look like things are happening that are not actually happening. So it's a very, very, very difficult job. That said, I do feel like on the season, even the officiating has been really poor. There have been just a number of completely blown calls that we're seeing impact the outcome of games, and it's unfortunate. There's a human element, and so there's going to be mistakes made, and that comes with human beings officiating the games. It's the way it goes, and you accept that. But it feels like this season has been particularly bad. Does it seem like it's been worse than most seasons, or are we just prisoners of the moment? And reality is every season it's like this. And I don't even know how you would quantify
Yeah,
this.
it probably seems worse than it really is. I think there's also, we have TV, our TVs are better now. When you're
That's true.
watching on TV, they can slow the game down and show you frame by frame stuff. And that's all the stuff that I try to remind people. They don't have that benefit live, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's sometimes, and it is shocking too how often, like Brian Scalabrine, who covers the Celtics, is somewhat famous for this. Oh my God, what an awful call. Oh, I can't believe it. Then they show the replay. He's like, oh, good call. That's right. They made it right. And it's how often that happens in games. And that is, I think, true that they are right way more. I mean, not even close to, there's still their hit rate is still something like 90%. And it's funny because I have all these people are like, well, if I did my job bad 10% of the time, I'd be fired. And I was like, really? Because I mean, you're tweeting at me at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not your job. Like, so I kind of laugh about those things, but it's like, I'm not, I don't, I don't know about all that stuff, but yeah, it probably seems worse. But what I will say is frustration is boiling over. There's Fred Van Vleet coming out, going crazy with this. And then also when you get into the position now where we're getting into games meaning more,
Yeah.
especially because all these playoff races, whether it be for seeding or spots, are so close. And then into the playoffs, I think we're going to end up with a high profile superstar player gets ejected from a game coming up here, and it's probably just going to boil over both ways and blow up, and then we'll hopefully that'll be the volcano exploding, and then it's over, right? And then now we all move on.
What do you think about him targeting or I shouldn't say targeting, calling out one specific referee? He's not saying, hey, referees in general. He's saying this referee has got a problem with me. This referee, we have issues and all of that. Is that I've seen the conversation around that being, that's a good thing because he's pinpointing exactly what the problem is and not just kind of throwing it out there at referees in general. Strategically, I don't know if he put a lot of thought into this, but it's interesting because normally you don't hear players or coaches call out one specific referee. It does happen, but it's usually more refs in general.
You don't have a problem with it at all because I think this is how you can hopefully affect change for you in this situation.
Mhm.
Because if the Raptors are going to play the rest of this year and go into the postseason, they're probably going to see Ben Taylor again at some point. And hopefully, maybe now all parties involved will take a look and be like, all right, we do got to do something here to fix this. I go all the way back to there was a point in time where Bill Kennedy stopped getting assigned games for the Celtics when Doc Rivers was the Celtics coach because he and Doc, and apparently it went all the way back to when they were kids
Mm.
growing up in Chicago, hated each other. And it was so bad that the league was like, the only way to fix this is you just don't do their games because it's too many problems are coming out of this. And that went on for a couple years. And that's to me weird because I think generally Bill Kennedy's one of the better officials we have.
Yeah.
I think he generally does a pretty good job. He does love his airtime on his when he does they have to go to a
The
coach
review.
challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, he and I appreciate though that he'll give the detail, but he does like being on TV a little bit. So, but yeah, I mean it's tough. And the last thing I'll say on this too is we should not know as many officials' names as we do. And it's a huge, huge thing. But it's like a lot of stuff with the NBA. I don't know that they exactly hate it because in the playoffs, if you tweet a ref assignment out for a big game, you're going to get a crap ton of engagement. And I think the NBA is kind of like, it's people paying attention. So it's kind of the old all publicity is good publicity ploy.
Yeah, that's the thing is I think fans are going to be upset about refs no matter what because we're always going to see things through the lens of our own team and if a call is made and it's the right call, that doesn't stick in your memory. It's the
Yeah.
wrong calls that do it. So those are going to really stand out and you're going to be upset about things like that. But what do you think about the backgrounds of referees? Like most refs grew up supporting certain teams. They grew up fans of the game and all of that. Should that I mean, we had this whole big thing with the Lakers and Celtics where the guy who reffed the Lakers Celtics game and didn't make the call on Jason Tatum, his whole family Celtics fans and grew up a Celtic fan.
Well, it's because
And look,
LeBron should be stronger. That's why he didn't make
that's
the
what it is,
call.
right? But
Be tough.
and I'm not saying that's why he didn't make the
Sure.
call or anything, but should that be this is just big picture, and I don't know how you would even
Yeah.
you'd have to really dig into the numbers and figure it out. It would be hard to do,
Yeah.
but I don't know if maybe that should be something that's looked into
I
for officials.
yeah, I just don't even know that you can do like I think by the time they get to that level, they're you're gonna find with all, if not all, the vast majority, they're referees now. Their team is a team of three, right? It's
Yeah.
them and the other two people on the floor, and they just want to get it right. Like I think I really do. I think other than maybe a couple who like we know Scott Foster, Tony
Sure.
Brothers, a couple guys who like to make the game about themselves. Outside of those guys, I think most of them do just want to. I just want to call the game and get out of there,
Make the right call. Yeah.
right? Like I just want to do my thing and go. So yeah, because then I don't know how you would ever legislate that, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
You know,
We make travel and game assignments,
yeah,
it would be a nightmare,
yeah,
but, and I'm not even saying any referee is consciously saying, "Well,
no,
I like this team, so I'm gonna make these calls."
yeah.
Just that it's part of what comes with, human
Yeah,
bias
no,
and
I
all that.
think if you can prove a clear trend that official X is favoring
Yes. Uh-huh.
team Y, then you have to do something, right?
Right.
And you have to go. But teams study the referee stuff too, where they'll know and they'll go in being like, all right, hey, the crew we have tonight, they will call it if you drive. Like, or they're more sensitive to the rip through fouls, or they're gonna let you play with your hands on defense a little bit more. And
Yep.
they coach their guys up. That's it's not, I'm not going to say it's as broken down and it's studied just as much as the opponent is, but it's part of the whole thing. And they'll know. And the players know too, because they'll tell you, they'll like, yeah, we knew with this crew tonight, they were going to let us be physical or, whatever it is. The biggest thing I know that players hate is when they change the way they referee a game
Mid-game.
in the
Yep.
game,
Yep.
right? It's either if you're calling everything, we'll adjust. Call everything all game long. That's on us to adjust. But you can't call everything and then with 2 minutes to go, be like, well, you didn't break his arm off at the body, so no
Yep.
foul call. Like you gotta stay consistent all the way through.
Yes, those inconsistencies will drive players crazy, that's for sure, and fans too.
Yeah, coaches too. Yeah, everybody, right?
Everybody,
Yeah.
everybody. Yep. Okay, let's get back to the fun stuff, of course,
Yeah.
injuries.
You and
Let's
I
go
just
it
describe fun very different ways.
yeah. Well, I guess this technically isn't an injury, but John Morant,
Yeah.
out at least the next 4 games, according to the Memphis Grizzlies. Doesn't look like police in Colorado are going to charge him with anything for that incident where he was on Instagram Live holding a weapon. The NBA, of course, will conduct their own investigation. But during that stretch, the Grizzlies play the Warriors. That's coming up tonight. They play the Mavs a couple of times and the Miami Heat during that 4-game span. And no John Morant for that stretch. And of course, the Grizzlies already lost Steven Adams, so we'll talk about in a moment, and Brandon Clark. So not easy for Memphis. This has been the team that has been able to. Last season they lost Ja and just kept on rolling. Right, they found ways to continue to win games, and it's been a bit of a bumpier ride without him now this season. And we'll see where they go from here. The Kings now jumping up to the 2 seed already. Memphis falling to 3.
Yeah, and they're only 2 up on Phoenix too.
Mhm.
So that's all of a sudden it's real sketchy for the Grizzlies moving forward. And we're going to get into some other reasons why too after this one. But this has to be bigger than these immediate games for the Memphis Grizzlies. You did whatever it takes to get John Morant back to a good place where he is making good decisions is far more important than any of the games that they play here over the next little bit. Yeah, obviously, if this stretched all the way into the postseason, then we're gonna have slightly different conversation and figure that out. But for the immediate, this is something that will hopefully change this young man's life and it'll pay off for years and years and years
Mhm.
versus a handful of regular season games that no one's really gonna remember at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, life is not good for the Memphis Grizzlies right now. They've got injuries, they've got this going on. Things are just rough, and they were looked like for a while Denver had separated, and it looked like all right, Memphis has got the second seed as long as everything doesn't go completely sideways and the wheels
Yeah.
fall off. And then everything went completely sideways and the wheels fell off. So now they got to figure it out.
And part of that has been no Steven Adams, and now it sounded like he was coming back
Yeah,
soon, and now he's out
Taylor
4 more
Jenkins
weeks.
said it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
So what's going on? Was this I think one of the things we noticed, and the NBA isn't as bad as some other sports are, but when teams are vague with injuries and you don't know exactly what's happening, that leads to frustration. And I'm just saying in general, not necessarily in this case, but why this sudden shift from it sounded like he's almost back and he's on the court doing work and all this kind of stuff to now 4 more weeks?
and my guess is whether they're going to call it a setback or not, some form of setback had to have happened because you're not going to go from he's almost back to 4 more weeks. If anything, you're going to be like, yeah, it's going to be another couple days, right? Like I think back to when we relaunched the show, the Kawhi Leonard playoff
Oh gosh.
injury.
Yep.
Every game he was questionable, and then at the end they're like, actually he tore his ACL,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, thanks. Like that was boy could have just told us that, right? But I really do. I think with this one, it really is a situation where this is rough because they're Jaren Jackson Jr. and Santi Aldama is kind of the front court now because Brandon Clark is out with an injury, and they're getting by with Xavier Tillman playing more, and those kind of things. But yeah, it's been a little a little messy for them. And Adams is such an important guy to them. I don't know if people realize Steven Adams was leading the league in offensive rebounding, and for a team they're a decent shooting team, but not a great shooting team. That's huge because he just creates extra opportunities for them. It just wasn't happening anymore. So, major loss for Memphis because 4 weeks, that's basically the regular season. We're recording this on March 9th. The regular season ends on April 9th. So, so we're like 4.5 weeks to the end of the year.
We should mention this. The Grizzlies play the Warriors tonight, which means Draymond's going to be on the floor with Dylan Brooks. Can we just get just a camera on the two of them at all times? Because they've taken a few shots at each other here publicly.
Yep.
Something is going to be said or something is going to happen there, I would have to imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have the history of last year when Dylan Brooks wiped out Gary Payton and injured him, and then the whole John Morant got hurt and all the stuff between these two teams, and they are pretty open. They don't like each other. Yeah. And what's even funnier than tonight's game, Memphis slides a little more and Phoenix catches them. And if the Warriors can stabilize, we're looking at a Memphis Warriors first round series. Which, sign me up. I'm there. I'll be staying up late on those West Coast Warriors games for sure to watch those two play. Something tells me the universe is pointing us in that direction in the first round.
And it may happen even if Memphis doesn't slide. I mean, the Warriors right now, they're 12 games back. The Clippers are 12 games back, sitting in the seed.
Yeah, it could be 3-6.
Yeah, they could be a 3-6 matchup there. So there's a couple of different ways that we could wind up with Warriors and Grizzlies in the first round. And as a neutral, I don't know if the fans of those teams want to see that happen, but for our purposes, yes, please. Can we please get this to happen? Because that'll be a lot of fun.
Now, of course, we should note the Western Conference 5-8 changes game to game. Yep. Who's in what positions in the Western Conference, 9-13. Also, you win and you're good. You lose and you're out. It's just what a run we're gonna have all the way to the end of this season.
It is bonkers. It is bonkers. Speaking of which, run to the end of the season. Zion Williamson out at least 2 more weeks for the Pelicans, and we always talk about this. That word reevaluation doesn't mean return. So it's going to be at least a couple of weeks and then he's going to get reevaluated, and then we'll go from there. I've seen some projections out 3 weeks. Brian Windhorst said he's going to be out a while. And like you said, there's not that much time left in the season. So the potential is here for Zion not to play again this season, or to not play until they get to the playoffs or something like that. The Pelicans right now sitting in the 10 seed, hanging on there. Got to win last night against the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, big one.
But and got to win without Brandon Ingram in the second half too. No Zion, no Brandon Ingram in the second half, and still managed to get a win, which was impressive. But no Zion, this team I think is capped in terms of their upside if they don't have Zion Williamson out on the floor. So it'll be interesting to see how the remainder of this season goes for the Pelicans. Do you try to get Zion back, or do you just say, let's not mess with this and call it good?
Yeah, I tend to think this is hopefully an injury where even if he was to come back and re-injure it, you're okay for the start of next year.
Yeah.
Versus something where it's like, all right, now it's really screwed up and we're not going to have you started next season. So I tend to think if once he's ready to go, yeah, let's get him out there. But you're probably going to be, to your point, 2 weeks you reevaluate, then it's probably at least a few days, if not another week, before you play. And then probably at least a week or two of, or we're going to watch minutes and limit, how much he's on the court and all that stuff. And on top of it, like you said, Ingram got hurt last night. We don't know what the extent of that is just yet. Jose Alvarado's out for probably at least about 2 more weeks. Larry Nance Jr. is probably out for at least another week or 2. So we're just in a position where this team's just falling apart. And these are all key important players for the Pelicans as they try to move up the West and just get into the postseason. We saw get them into the playoffs, and they can be a frisky bunch. They
Sure.
put a real scare in the Suns last year. So I don't know, man. They're just such a different team when Zion plays. Like Zion played for that little stretch, then I was like, huh, maybe the Pelicans in the West, and
Yep.
then then he got hurt and everything kind of fell apart. So I think this probably comes down to, are we in it or within a game or two with a week or so to play when he's ready to go? All right, get out there and play, and let's try to make this run and get into the play in and go from there. But if for some reason they're 2, 3, 4 games out with a week to play, then it's probably like, all right, just shut it down. There's no point.
Yeah. Let's start making vacation plans and
Yeah.
get better for next season and all that.
Any
Um,
injury now that's more than a couple weeks, I think that's the conversation every team that's not going to be a playoff team is having.
That's a good point. It's something that I when this came up the other day, I forget who it was, but it came up the other day. The headline reads season-ending injury for whoever, whatever. And look, this time of year, yet like the initial reaction is season-ending. There's not that much left in the
Yeah.
season. So there's a lot more season-ending injuries right now because you've only got 4 weeks left. So just
Yep.
keep that in mind. Don't get caught by that instant scare when you see that headline. Like it can be, we're gonna hit a point where it's guy stubs his toe, season-ending injury. Well, yeah, because there's
Yeah.
no time left, right?
Yeah. Well, it's
That's
like
that's
Kevin Durant, right? Like even a
yeah,
severe ankle sprain, and they're like, that might be it for the regular season. At first, same reaction. I was like, really? And then I'm like, well, yeah, I guess it's like a 3-week injury at least. So yeah, it makes sense. That's probably why he's out for the rest of
yep,
the season, regular
right.
season.
Lonzo Ball,
Ah,
another surgery coming for Lonzo potentially. I don't know, Keith. Our conversation last time we talked about Lonzo was are we getting to a point where it's not can Lonzo play basketball again, just can Lonzo get healthy, period, just as a human being? Because it seems like his body does not want to play basketball. This knee situation, now a third surgery on his right knee, extend his absence into next season. I mean, we heard all the stuff about him not being able to like walk up the stairs and things like that. And
yeah,
then there were some reports of, okay, well, now he's running a little bit and now there's this. Something is obviously very much not right here in Lonzo. And at some point, the conversation would have to transition from is he going to play basketball anymore to just how do we get this guy just functioning correctly, his body right and everything as a person? Because that kind of stuff starts to become a bigger factor here the deeper this goes.
yeah. And he was very clear on Twitter to say this is not where we are today. But
Right.
Bobby Marks broached like at some point, or if you're the Bulls, are you looking at and saying this is career ending? Like we need to, like we're going to petition for the salary relief.
Yep.
And again, not today. And Bobby said that
Correct.
himself too. But that we're even remotely in that position is it's just awful.
Yeah.
He was having his best all around year with the Bulls. I know he's averaged more assists some years, he's averaged more points, but his shooting, his counting stats were down a little because that Bulls team was awesome before he
Yeah.
got hurt. They were playing unbelievable. And he was kind of the key to all of it because he was getting DeRozan and Ball and DeRozan and Levine rather and Vucevic set up and getting them good shots and really getting guys where they should be and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden it's just gone and done. And and it's just it was over. And now, I mean, they said if he has this surgery, they want to time it up like as soon as possible so that maybe he can be back for the start of next season. Like we're talking out since January of 2022. So already over a year. And if he misses the start of next year, that's starting to get into like Jonathan Isaac territory
Yep.
of stuff, Clay Thompson territory. Now, Clay made it back. He's made it
Yeah.
all the way back. And great. Isaac looked pretty good and unfortunately had what's probably a related injury because he had a hamstring injury, I believe, in the same leg as the knee injury. So that's something you worry about, right? It's kind of like how many times have you tweak an ankle and then the next thing you know, your back or hip hurts because you're walking funny, right? Like everything's connected. But it's in this case with Lonzo Ball, you just start to wonder, like, is this gonna happen? Right? Are we ever gonna see him play again? And if we do, what's he gonna look like? Right? Because this is
Yeah.
a guy who he wasn't super reliant on his athleticism, but that the quick moves, the quick twitches, the quick cuts, like that was all there. And it's just, it really is, one of those things. I had somebody tweet me today and just, this is how sports fandom works. He's like, I wake up pretty regularly and I think, man, thank God the Celtics got Jason Tatum out of that draft because it was Fultz,
Oh yeah.
Ball, and Tatum. And
Yep.
he's like, that's just, and that's just how it goes sometimes, right? Fultz and Ball were considered absolute can't miss prospects. And here we are. And that's Markelle Fultz has obviously gone through a lot. He's made it back. He's having a really nice, productive year. A lot better of a year, I think, than most people realize, because I know a lot of people aren't tuning into Magic basketball right now. But it's still just, that's the crapshoot of the draft. And that second pick, the history of the second pick it's just not good. We go back through so many drafts. The second pick is like, what happens here? Other
Machine
than
to
KD.
beat. I mean, Brandon Ingram wound up being good. I mean, you could say, look, there was the question for a long time, Brandon Ingram versus Ben Simmons. I think teams would very much rather have Brandon Ingram right now. But in general,
that question's been answered.
Yes. Yeah.
Even with the injury stuff, you'd rather have, because it's not like Simmons doesn't have his own injury stuff. Yeah.
Correct.
Now, I think you'd rather have Jaylen Brown than both, but that's a whole other topic.
Sure.
For later.
You would go Jaylen Brown over well, yeah, with the injury stuff added in.
Yeah, he's just more reliable, right?
Sure. Well, and you know what? There's in general, like that's part of that is sports, right? I mean, the draft can be a crapshoot 100%. But I stop and I think about what would teams like, especially if you transported him to today, a pre-knee issue Brandon Roy is going for all the picks, right? Like going for teams would be tripping over themselves trying to get him.
That Portland team would have been.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And then this knee stuff comes up, and next thing you know, he's not the same guy anymore, and his career unfortunately is derailed. Or you look at like Jay Williams, right? It's human bodies. You just never know.
Yep. For sure. Boy, what an uplifting, happy.
Yeah. I sure hope for the live show tomorrow we have some positive things.
Yeah, we'll have fun tomorrow. Nobody drive your car off a bridge listening to this, please.
Yeah.
Tomorrow will be a better day. We'll have a much more happy, uplifting show tomorrow. But I think we've got a little bit more to get to, right?
I'm gonna go listen to The Cure after this. All right, Bojan Bogdanovic to be shut down once again. This was what I saw that I was thinking of, like, what, shut down for the season? Season's only like 4 weeks left. So and look, if you're the Pistons, this is the kind of stuff we see from these teams in this position, year in and year out, where they shut down players because they're not necessarily all that worried about winning games right now. Right now, it's more about, hey, do we get some opportunities here for the younger guys and things of that nature? Because let's face it, we're not going to the playoffs, we're not going to the postseason, and no reason to put the mileage on our veterans right now. And he's dealing with a legitimate injury. So I would be surprised if we did see Bogdanovic again this season. Yeah,
it doesn't make sense. They're so far down and out there. Like they're not gonna. There's no reason, right, at this point. And you kept him because your hope is that you have him next season, and that's why you kept him and you kept Alec Burks. Alec Burks has been in and out of the lineup a lot recently too, and it's perfectly fine, no issue. You want to go that direction. It's not like they need to tank any harder. I think our top three are now pretty well set. It's going to be Houston, San Antonio, and Detroit in some order. But why the order does still matter, even though we focus so much on they all have the same 14% odds at Victor Wembanyama. But if you are one and one team jumps you, you're still two. Like, and you're still getting the other pick. Like, you don't want to just be like, it's fine if we're three. And now all of a sudden you're fourth or fifth or God forbid sixth if three teams jumped up. Like, so you just want to be smart about it that way. But it's this one didn't come as any surprise to me once I heard all right what he's dealing with. Let's just move along.
All right, somehow, some way we made it through the mountain of injuries here that we got to discuss on this show. 1:00 Eastern time tomorrow. 10 o'clock Pacific time. We'll be live on the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. It's a chance for listeners, viewers to come in, ask us any questions that you want about your teams, about the cap space coming up for this summer, moves you want to make, the playoff race, whatever you want to ask us about. We will be there on the YouTube channel. We'll stick around for half hour, 45 minutes, something like that. We'll be there starting at 1 o'clock Eastern time on Friday, Front Office Friday. Come join us for that. Oh, Keith, I need something to pick me up after the show because it's been
Go
all
get a candy
negative.
bar or some ice
Something
cream or
like
something
that.
like that.
Something like that. I'm gonna go like read inspirational tweets or something. You get the accounts that aggregate those. I'm gonna go find that or something
See, for
to
me, I'm
pick me
gonna
up.
literally shut off the recording and then I'm gonna watch the little college hoops and get
There
back
you go.
into it and go. So
That's the way to
that's
do it.
gonna put a smile on my face here. Basketball all day, man. I'm so excited. I don't even have to do school pickup today,
Nice.
and this is it. We're in spring break after this for a week and a day. So I'm beyond excited. I get to just I might not even leave the house for days. We'll see how that all comes together.
We're gonna, like in 3 days, we're gonna do a show, and your office is gonna be like a cave. It's gonna be clear you haven't shaved, and it's like Keith has
I
not
don't know
come
about
out
the
of.
shaved part. I grow facial hair like a preteen boy, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure anyone will notice that. It doesn't get much scruffier than this, but all the rest that may be true. I might look like Pigpen from the Peanuts with the stink coming off me.
I haven't seen the sun in 5 days. You live in Florida. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I used to love on it. It was one of my favorite things to do was on NCAA tournament day. I'd be like, I'd call friends. I'd be like, it's the tournament day. And they'd be like, yeah, I took the day off. I'm so excited. I'm like, man, they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to go to the pool for like an hour before the tournament tips off. And they'd be like the pool, man, it's 14 degrees here in Massachusetts. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's like 85 here, but it's supposed to be chilly for us. So, but I'm gonna leave it at that because people don't like when I say it's chilly and then I follow it with a temperature there. Like you idiot, that's not cold.
It's a brisk 78 there, right?
You're not far off.
All right. Let's wrap things up there. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Make sure you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office Show on YouTube. Turn on those notifications so you get notified when we go live tomorrow. And of course, follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.